This is Brother, Beyond the Craft, with Neil Thomas Allen and Taz Bachu.
Hello and welcome to Brother Beyond the Craft. My name is Neil Thomas Allen and we are back again for an episode on the Allied Masonic Degrees. As always, I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Taz Bachu. Taz, how the devil are you, mate?
I am very good. I'm slightly frazzled after an insane week at work, and also coming to you from the home office because I've literally just clocked off. But yeah, really, really good. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, I mean, I haven't even officially clocked off yet. I'm just making excuses for the last half an hour. So, if anybody at work is watching this, I have definitely clocked off. Yeah, very well done. Thank you, mate. Coping, absolutely coping. We are also joined, as always, by the man who stands 400 feet tall and rocks a man bun, Jack Saunders. Jack, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, same as Taz, a bit frazzled this week. And I thought I was going to be clocking off a bit earlier and I wasn't. So there was flames coming out my shoes as I was running back to the house. But I'm here and I'm really ready to go.
Fabulous stuff. And lastly, but not leastly, he supports a moustache to rival any ginger RAF flight lieutenant. That's producer Josh. Josh, how are you, my friend?
What an introduction. Love that. Yeah, no, I'm really good. I'm well on board with the tash now. It's here to stay for the long haul. I look back at photos of when I had a full beard and just think, nah, not going back there. So no, very good. Taking good care of the moustache. Fully on board now also with the safety razor. I'll never go back to a, 7-blade Gillette thing. I'm well on board with the old school shaving. So no, other than that, very good.
I reckon we could do an extra on moustache care.
I definitely think so.
Tips with Josh would be amazing.
It has been mentioned in the brother group chat for our lovely viewers and listeners, doing a shave with me video.
Yeah, that's probably by yourself, in which case that's vetoed.
And you could do like a shoulders up version, preferably. Hope.
Yes, it would be. Anyway.
Right, let's get into it.
It's been a long week, I did say.
Let's get it. Okay, so the Allied Masonic Degrees, guys, let's get into it. And to help us and enable us to do that, we are joined by the acting Grand Secretary for London. He may not even realise it. Friend of the podcast, friend of me. It's Scott Cargill. Scott, how the devil are you, my friend?
Thanks, Neil. I'm wonderful, actually. It's 5 o'clock. It's Friday, and I'm the guest speaker on Brother Masonic. I think it's fair to say I've arrived in Freemasonry, brethren. And just before I continue, if I may, I just want to congratulate you guys on this show. I watch it every time a new podcast comes out, and I think you're doing excellent work for Freemasonry in general. So congratulations. Thank you from us all.
Cheers, man, and that's hugely appreciated. So we're going to delve straight into it. But first of all, we want to know a little bit about you, how you came into Freemasonry, and in particular how you kind of got involved with the Allied.
Well, I became a Freemason in 2002, 2003. It was like most people, it was a guy I was working with who I saw came in with a little black case. I think before the age of 19, I'd never even heard of the word Freemason. So I'm kind of first generation when there's not father, grandfather, etc., in my life who are Freemasons. So I really only had him to give me guidance. Joined the craft, loved it. Joined the Royal Arch, loved it. And then started to pick up other orders as one went on. I'm a member of 13 orders in total. Since 2010, I've been the secretary of Emulation Lodge of Improvement, that's a bit of a job within itself. I then joined the Mark, and it led me in 2008 to the Allied Masonic Degrees, which is one of my favourite orders in Freemasonry. I'm currently the acting district grand secretary. You tried to give me promotion there, Neil, by saying I was the grand secretary, but I'm the acting.
You're welcome.
Acting. Don't tell Ryan. I'm the acting district grand secretary for London, and I'm a grand officer in the order, and that's me.
Awesome. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to pick up on. So you said that you joined Mark, and this kind of led you into the AMD. So I think before we kind of deep dive into that, would you be able to give us a bit of a background to the order? What's it all about for somebody that hasn't heard about it before?
Yeah. Well, the Allied Masonic Degrees is comprised of 5 distinct but entirely unrelated degrees. There's no linkage at all. Some of them are not connected with anything that, say, for example, a Craft or Royal Archmason will ever have heard of. Some are Solomonic, so they can. 2 of the degrees do contain bits of the Solomonic legend, but 3 of them do not. The sovereign body that governs the order is known as the Grand Council of the Order of Allied Masonic Degrees in England and Wales and its districts and councils overseas. We have the head of the order is known as a Grand Master. Not all orders have a Grand Master, they have other titles. And our current Grand Master is Most Worshipful Brother Thomas Firth Jackson. He has a deputy, Right Worshipful Brother Clive Manuel. The Grand Secretary is Ryan Williams, as he is all orders administered out of Mark Mason's Hall. The area of England and Wales is split up into regions known as districts. So they're not provinces, they're called districts. And the head of each of those districts is a district grand prefect. He's not known as a district grand master, he's known as a district grand prefect, which is something that's quite unusual. And the current district grand prefect for London is Right Worshipful Brother Colin Robert Woodcock, MBE. So, as I say, the order is comprised of 5 lovely, distinct, but totally unrelated degrees. The first of which is known as St. Lawrence the Martyr. Now, I say the first because St. Lawrence the Martyr is what's known as the entry degree and also the business degree. So when you join the order, and by the way, for those of you, your listeners and followers are interested in these things, whereas in the Craft you're initiated, in the Holy Royal Arch you're exalted, and in the Mark you are advanced, in the degree of St. Lawrence the Martyr you are introduced, received and admitted as a brother of St. Lawrence. So that all of that business has to go on the summons. The Master-elect is installed in the degree of St. Lawrence, or the Board of Installed Masters is open in St. Lawrence, and he appoints his officers within that degree. His officers, whilst their title changes, as you move from degree to degree, that officer, so the equivalent of the senior warden, will stay in that particular office for each of the other 5 degrees. There's no kind of shifting around between offices when you move from one degree to another. In order to move from one degree to another, you must adjourn a Lodge of St. Lawrence. So you have to open a Lodge of St. Lawrence. You adjourn and then you move on to whichever degree you want to open next. The degree is a story of St. Lawrence the Martyr, who was a Spaniard and a deacon for the Roman Catholic Church and Roman Christian Church, I should say, and it teaches fortitude and humility. And as per the rest of the degrees in this order, that morality lesson, which is one of the things I like about it, and I'll come on to it a little bit more, it's quite clear. It's absolutely crystal clear. There's no subjective, does it mean this, does it mean that? It's one of the things I really do like about the order, so far as what you are taught and how you're supposed to get your daily advancement the Masonic knowledge is crystal clear within the ceremony and the lectures. So moving on, the next degree is Knight of Constantinople. This degree teaches humility and universal equality. Now, it can't be said that this is the second degree. And again, I'll come on to this a little bit more later, because once you've done St. Lawrence, you can open and receive or work any other of the 4 degrees. There's no order. It's not like the craft. It's not like, so you had your fantastic podcast with Rod a couple of weeks ago on Royal and Select, where you have to go in an order. In the Allied, you don't. You can take any of the other ceremonies in any order you wish. And there's also another surprise, which I'll delve into a little bit later. So a candidate into this order is admitted. And again, this is, it's obviously, it's a degree which is about Constantine. And it takes place in, without trying to give too much away, it takes place in his courtyard around the kind of the 4th century. This, along with St. Lawrence, are the 2 shorter ceremonies. They're quite nice, they're quite short, they don't take up too much time. But as per the others, the lecture in this degree is really excellent. It's a lovely little lecture. So moving on, the third of the degrees is known as the Grand Titles of Solomon, or Mason's Elect of 27. A candidate is admitted to the degree of Mason's Elect of 27 and created a Grand Title of Solomon. The degree teaches the danger of carelessness. This is one of the 2 Solomonic degrees, and is quite cryptic in nature. So from your conversations that you had on Royal and Select last week, you'll understand what the cryptic word denotes. And very colourful. Came from America, arguably, and you'll know this, Neil, because I know you're a member of the order, arguably the longest Knox in Freemasonry, again, without trying to give too much away. And yet it's again, another lovely, very colourful, as they all are, very dramatic. If you like kind of paraphernalia and headwear, this is another one of those orders that you'll really like the colourful nature. Very inclusive, as they all are. Again, one of the nice things I like about the Allied Masonic Degrees, a very, very inclusive order. We moved on from Knights of Constantinople, but if I may just go back quickly, there is at one point of the ceremony in Knights of Constantinople, every single person in the room is involved. Now, I quite like that. I'm a member of some orders where literally you've got the guy who's the equivalent of the worshipful master and maybe 1 or 2 others, and they are the people who conduct the whole of the ceremony. It's not the case in the Allied Masonic Degrees. So moving on to the 4th, if you wanted to call it that, Red Cross of Babylon, one of my favourite degrees in ceremonies in Freemasonry, kind of splits up into 3 parts. You have a part that's first set in Babylon, a part which involves a bridge. The 3rd part is set in Jerusalem, and it is an allegory of life, death, and judgment. Incredibly special. A candidate is constituted, created a Knight of the Red Cross of Babylon. The degree emphasizes the importance of fidelity, integrity, and truth. And it could be said that esoterically, it is a symbol of a passage of an upright man from the struggles overcome in this world to well-earned honor in the next. Again, extremely colourful. 2 distinct parts to it, which causes slight challenges when it comes to putting officers in place. But if it's done really, really well, it really is one of the most spectacular ceremonies that you'll see in the whole of Freemasonry. Finally, the final degree is the Grand High Priest, undoubtedly exceptionally old, so much so that the original origins and even the country of its origin is kind of shrouded in a little bit of mystery. The earliest appearances in this country were in Bristol, Liverpool, and Newcastle, some time towards the end of the 18th century. The degree is held in a tabernacle, which is supposed to represent the encampments of Melchizedek in the Valley of Shaver. And it reflects the story of Abraham, the immigrant from Mesopotamia, who was blessed by Melchizedek, the Canaanite priest king. A candidate is anointed, admitted, anointed, consecrated, and set apart. It's a bit of a mouthful, to the holy office of Grand High Priest. It's certainly the most philosophical of the degrees. It certainly pushes the candidates towards that way of Masonic thinking. It's supposed to leave them in, it leaves them in no doubt that they are set apart for high duties and responsibilities in life, both as a man and as a Mason. And he's taught that he's called out to dedicate himself to the service of the Most High God, and also that to his fellow men. So that is your 5. You also, of course, have, for the eagle-eyed of you, you'll realize that you have the ceremony of installation. So that's 6 ceremonies that you actually have to kind of conduct and eventually, of course, go through when you get through to the chair, which, again, I'll move on to a little bit later on, but it kind of makes it very interesting in terms of the demographic of how you arrange your meetings. So that's my bit on the degrees.
Thanks, Scott. That's great. Like, normally now I'd like to ask what is normally quite unique about your degree, but you just gave us such a grateful insight into it. There's so much there that is unique, especially the different degrees and how, like you say, they're not connected at all. Do you know how they came to be connected or brought together?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right, Jack. They are very unique. They're unique also insofar as I did allude to it earlier. You don't have to take any of the ceremonies in any order. So the entrance level is St. Lawrence, and you can take, the next one might be Knights of Constantinople with Grand High Priest. It might be just Red Cross of Babylon its own. It might be Grand Tylers of Solomon and St. Lawrence. You might enter and do another ceremony on the same day. There's no order that you need to go into. What is absolutely unique, I believe, in Freemasonry is not only do you not need to take them in any order, you don't need to take them in your mother council. So you can take any other degree anywhere you wish, anywhere in the country. And that's quite unique in Freemasonry. So, for example, if you're like Neil, if you're an Essex guy or you're a Kent guy, and you join in London, you think, well, actually, I can grab a degree next Saturday because I know this is going on in a centre local to me. You can contact the secretary, and you'll be more than welcome. Firstly, your council would be more than happy to allow you to do it, and they won't turn around and say, we'd rather you do that here, like you get in some other orders. And the council that receives you would be absolutely delighted to receive you. You'll, of course, have to pay your dinner. They're not going to pay that for you. But you can go anywhere to do that. So that is the final bit of me trying to describe the uniqueness of the Allied Masonic Degrees.
Do you have to leave a certain amount of time between taking each of the degrees, or can you do them in quite close succession?
No.
Great.
You can do them in very close succession. I mean, I know a brother who, I think he had them all done and wrapped within the space of 4 weeks, believe it or not, because he literally just found each unit that was doing, whether it be, he's a Surrey man. So he went to, but he's on Surrey, Surrey Kent borders. So he went from Surrey into Kent, into London, and within 4 weeks, he kind of wrapped it all up. So it's very user friendly in that way. And as I say, your mother council will actively encourage you, if you wish, to go to other councils, because one of the visiting is one of the unique selling points of AMD Freemasonry. You're actively encouraged to go to other councils in your own district and to go to other councils in other districts. You will be made very welcome and you'll be very well received. And your mother council will actively encourage you to do it. If you don't wish to do it, you don't have to. But if you want to, you can.
That's one of the things that I was actually going to allude to, is that one of the reasons that I've loved being involved in the Allied certainly in London, because that's kind of been my exposure to it, is that it really does promote the visiting and getting to know the other guys in the order. Obviously, when you drill down, and I'm going to ask you about how you can qualify to join in a second, but one of these things is that when you are a member of a couple of different units, obviously the numbers and the membership gets ever so slightly smaller, because you're whittling down people who have the time and almost the money to join these things. But when you get to the Allied, it really does kind of form its own scene where they all intervisit each other's councils, and it's this really, really friendly, colourful place. That's one of the things I really, really love about the Allied, and that I really enjoyed about
Well,
membership.
I'd agree with that. It's certainly colourful, and you're right. You know, there is this little kind of, everybody kind of mixes around and goes to each other's units. In London, we're very lucky. We've got a great comms team, and you can actually book a visit to another council just by clicking on the website. There's a little drop-down box. I'd like to visit. Would you like to take a ceremony? No, yes. Would you like to dine? No, yes. You click a button, and the secretary of the council receives an email, and Bob's your uncle. You can just rock up. I mean, it is really, it's very, 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 very user friendly.
So let's talk about how you qualify to join the order.
Yeah. So of course, one has to be a Master Mason, and you have to be a member of the Royal Arch and the Mark. Now, that leads to a certain place with the individuals that are joining the order, I believe, and it's another one of the things that I do like about the order. And by the way, there are other orders that are exactly the same as the Allied, for example, as I mentioned before, Royal and Select is exactly the same qualification. But when you're joining these orders, I believe that there are Freemasons join Freemasonry for various different reasons. And by the time you get to kind of your second or third order, some of those reasons may be kind of satisfied. I'm not going to knock anybody who's just a member of the craft and the Royal Arch, and that's all, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that they're not committed, because at one point in time I was only a member of the craft and the Royal Arch, and I was extremely committed. But if you're going to join a fourth order, the people who seek a fourth order seek a certain something. They're looking for constant advancement. They're looking for constant knowledge. They're looking for constant depth and delving into other orders and other stories and other mystery plays and other teachings as to how one is supposed to conduct one's life. So you are left with people who, I'm not going to use a certain phrase, but those people in that, say, for example, are just members of the craft, and that's all they need and satisfies them. Well, that kind of itch is scratched. The people who join an order that requires for it to be your fourth order, like the Royal and Select and like the Allied, they're clearly seeking a certain something, a certain je ne sais quoi. They want more knowledge. In the Royal and Select, they want to know the location of the Master Word, for example. They in the Allied, they want to understand and go to a place where they can get 5 completely different degrees in different orders. They can go to a meeting. There's no prerequisite that one has to follow another, so it means that you can have any different balance of ceremonies when you go to a meeting. So in other words, you're not seeing the same thing all the time. You can have any number of combinations, 2, sometimes 3 if you're only doing small ones, which of course makes your meetings very varied and very interesting.
One of my favourite things about joining new orders and finding out about new orders is the regalia. So you've already said that AMD is a very colourful degree. Is there any particular regalia that you have to have for AMD?
Well, it's an interesting question, Jack. And lo and behold, as I thought that you may ask that question, I have a load of regalia here right with me. You may be pleased to know. So when you join the Allied Masonic Degrees, the only prerequisite that you not saying it's a constitutional prerequisite, but the only thing that you're expected to acquire is one of these ties. This is the slightly more modern version. You can see it's got the crest of Grand Council there. And the previous version to that is this one here, which contains a series of gridirons, which is, as you will know, the symbol of St. Lawrence the Martyr. When you complete all 5 degrees, you're allowed to wear one of these, which is commonly known as the 5-bar jewel. The alternative is something, I don't have a composite jewel because I give mine away to someone who needed it more than I did. But that's what a composite jewel looks like, and it kind of goes here. That's not life size, by the way, brethren. So don't be too frightened that you're gonna topple over when you don it. But this is certainly the more expensive one, and it's the older format. The composite jewel is a newer format. What some people tend to do is when they become Brothers of St. Lawrence, they kind of pop this in the top of the jacket and they kind of just do this type of thing, so that kind of pops out. They'll do another degree, that kind of pops out until they've done the whole 5, and they will have all of those on show. Now, until you go through the chair and become a district officer, that is the regalia. That's it. So all you've got to, there's nothing that you put in your bags. Another one of the great things I love about the order, it's very user friendly. If I'm in the city and I've got a big bag to carry, I've not got lashings of regalia and big frilly things with me. It's very, very, very simple, the regalia and the Allied Masonic Degrees. When you become a district officer, you receive or you acquire a district collar, which is dark green with a silver braid and a jewel at the bottom. This one, of course, says London. You might just be able to see that. And if you're an active district officer, you given a collarette. Of course, this is London. This is my assistant secretary's collarette. And you wear that whilst you're an active officer. When you stop becoming
and
active,
for those listening to the podcast, it's also green. We did audio
green.
description
Sorry,
as well.
I keep forgetting that we are we're on the sound only for some people. So and that's it. When you get promoted within the district, you don't need to buy a different collar, because one collar is the same for every office, and it's the same for grand rank as well. So this is the dress grand rank regalia. Okay, quite ornate with lots of gold. That's the jewel, which is the old crest of Grand Council. And if you're an active officer, of course, you, like in other orders, you'll receive a chain. But when you hand your chain back after your year of being active, or your years of being active, you are allowed to wear. I've got one of these because I was a grand steward. This tells everybody that I was an active grand officer as opposed to just being awarded a past rank. And again, I'm now a past grand steward. If I ever get something like a deacon, I don't need to go out and buy another set of regalia. That's another nice thing about the order. In other orders, the craft, the mark, if you're a pursuivant or you're a standard bearer and you suddenly become a deacon, go out and buy more regalia. In the Allied, you don't. And of course, you'll have seen those collars. They kind of roll up kind of quite nicely and slip into your man bag. There's no need to take out the big black case. So that's quite good as well. That's another quite nice point of the order.
That's great. It makes it quite accessible to newer and younger Masons to be a part of as well. If like you say, it's already their fourth degree and they're already spending money on yearly subscriptions, to have low regalia costs is a big factor. Do you know roughly what the subscription rates are for AMD?
Yeah, I mean, most orders out of Mark Mason's Hall are around the kind of £50-55 mark. There's one or two that are more. I remember of a couple of that are more. But most of the councils in London, of course I can only speak for London, are anything between 45 and 50 pound a year. So they're not kind of the eye-watering 175 like all-inclusive subs, 220 pound in some orders. They're quite low. Again, for younger members, we try to make sure that the meetings in London start beyond 5 o'clock. So the ones I administered or have administered, we try to start them at 5:30. In London, we also have, without trying to beat the London drum too much, but we do have a Saturday morning council, which we set up for young professionals and younger guys. And we don't start that at normal times. It's first thing in the morning. So it's kind of a 10:30 start, spot of lunch at 12 o'clock. We are away for 1:30. You know, I've got a family, I've got 3 businesses, and I've got an 8-year-old, and that takes more than enough time. So I'm usually on the tube and back to West London, and normally back here by kind of 2:15. So I've still got the day, spend the day with Francesca, etc., etc.
So it seems that there is a provision for all different types of Mason. So, for example, you've mentioned that a lot of councils are geared up for younger Masons as well. So, What would you say makes the ideal candidate? Someone who's, they've got all of the qualifications, but who's the ideal Mason to join AMD?
Well, I think I'm looking at 3 of them right here. So,
oh, we're going to have a Neil get involved.
Well, I train him well. The ideal candidate for the Allied Masonic Degrees, there is no doubt that the Allied Masonic Degrees isn't for everybody. I personally think it's a very underrated and understated order. It certainly doesn't have the bling and the razzmatazz of some of the other orders, and it's certainly nowhere near as high profile of some of the other orders. But there's a certain relaxed loveliness about the ceremonies. There's no uppityness. There's certainly no tutting, and everyone's there because they want to be there. If you're joining a 4th order, you're there because you're not there because, oh well, I've got to go along because I've paid my subscriptions and blah. You join a 4th order because you're a passionate Freemason. Again, that doesn't mean to say that if you're not in 4 orders, you're not passionate. But nobody who just is looking for a social life joins 4 Masonic orders. They can expel that in the craft, the Royal Arch, and the Mark. So I would suggest that someone who is looking for maybe additional daily advancements. Again, one of the lovely things about the order is the fact that its Masonic teachings and wisdoms are extremely transparent, so transparent that it actually explains it in the preface of each degree prior to the ritual. So each degree has a preface before each ceremony, and it explains in the preface what the degree is supposed to represent. So there's no hidden mysteries with this. It says, in Knights of Constantinople, all men are equal in the sight and the eyes of God. It's all about universal equality and humility. So it's someone who likes to meet people, who likes like-minded Masonic people, who wants to see more Freemasonry and be around just good men. I would suggest that's probably hits the nail on the head. I mean, Neil, you're a member. What would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say it's I think you summed it up perfectly. To be honest, I think it's someone who wants more bang for their buck for their next Masonic order. You've got 5 completely separate ceremonies. And you want to pay 1 sub for 5 ceremonies. Great social circle. I love the tie. What's not to like? But yeah. So let's move on. This is the most important thing. So yeah, green and gold, exactly. Right. So we've been asking all of our experts of our orders to come up with the elevator pitch on the order. Now, the idea being that we are keeping a time on this as close to 30 seconds as possible. Now, of course, we have our leaderboard, which Josh, I believe you might have.
I do.
There it
So
is.
again, this is very visual, but we'll go through it for the podcast listeners. So at the moment, at the top of the leaderboard is the Red Cross of Constantine with
Yep.
30 seconds, 0.17, which is bang on. Second place is Royal
Unbeatable.
Select Masters with 36.76. And then Order of the Secret Monitor came in last so far with a bang on 45 seconds. So, I mean, the time to beat is 30.17, which that's
Doesn't give you
iconic.
much. Doesn't give you much room either side, really, does it? To be fair.
No.
But yeah, and I've seen
So-
all of those pictures, by the way, and they were all very, very good. 3 excellent orders, by the way. I'd commend any of those orders to anybody who was considering joining another order, except make sure you do it after you've joined the AMD.
There you go. So, Taz, are you or anybody who's going to get their timer ready?
I will. I'm on the timer.
Right, Josh, I'll leave it up to you.
You're gonna count me in?
Go.
Yep. Okay. So, Scott, for the AMD, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Brethren, if you are considering your next step in Freemasonry, please consider the Allied Masonic Degrees. 5 wonderful and inclusive degrees that contain clear and transparent morality messages and teachings. You will meet like-minded, committed brethren. You'll be encouraged to visit, if you wish, of course, and you can receive any of these degrees in any sequence, anywhere. We are a happy, different, and unique order, which has strong values, provides good company, and encapsulates all that is good about Freemasonry. Brethren, thank you for listening.
Ooh.
That's got to be close. That has got to be close.
That was good. That was very good. Right. Okay. So the question is, where do you think you've come?
I reckon I'm less than 36, but I'm not going to beat 30.17. Although I might be slightly under. Could be 28, 29, maybe.
Right. Okay. No. Good. Good. Very good. Okay. Well, Scott Cargill, acting Grand Secretary for London of the Allied Masonic Degrees, I can tell you that you did it in 33 seconds, 0.41, which means we have
33? Wow.
There we go.
A little bit of fanfare there as well.
There we go. Second place.
Thank you very much. I'm a bit disappointed in that, actually. I had rehearsed it, and I thought I'd got 30 seconds. So, yeah.
I think that was a good effort, though.
Yeah, that was absolutely solid. I think we've deep dived into the Allied Degrees and uncovered it to be an incredibly interesting and personable order, in which I think has a lot of appeal. It's understated and also rife with reasons to join it. So, yeah, Scott, I just want to say, obviously, from on behalf of us, thank you so much for jumping on. Normally at this juncture, we'll try and give a round of applause. It never normally works, but let's do it anyway. Chaps,
Thank you very much.
That definitely didn't come out. Love it. Right, well, guys, that kind of is going to wrap up our deep dive into the AMD. I want to thank you all for downloading the podcast, listening, streaming, or watching the video. If you do want to find us on any sphere on the internet, our wonderful producer Josh will be more than happy to deliver all of our social medias.
Yes, well, of course, the easiest way to find us is to go onto our website, which is www.brothermasonic.com, where you can also listen to all of the episodes so far, and you can watch all of those from the new series. It's also got links to all of our social medias, but essentially you can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Brother Masonic. And we'd also like to say a massive thanks to Mark Masons Hall for working with us to produce this season of Brother. So you can go to markmasonshall.org to find out more information about all of the orders that we're working with for season 2.
Thank you so much. guys, this kind of wraps up this episode of Brother Beyond the Craft. We will be back ever so soon with our next episode on a very different order. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but we've got a big one. We've got a big gun for this one, which I'm very excited about. So yeah, guys, thank you so much as always. We are brother. You are too. We'll speak to you again soon.
This is Brother Beyond the Craft with Neil Thomas Allen and Taz Bachu. This was a Brother production in association with Mark Mason's Hall, presented by Neil Thomas Allen and Taz Bachu, with Jack Saunders, produced by Joshua Worley. You can follow us on social media at Brother Masonic on Facebook and Twitter.